Welcome to the Business Growth Spotlight, where we shine the light and talk with business leaders from all over the world who are here sharing their insights and wisdom so we can all grow together. I'm your host, Heidi Schalk, co-founder of HLH Growth Solutions, and we're going to have some fun today with my conversation with my special guest. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to Theo Crewe-Reed with Racecar Classifieds. So welcome, Theo, to the podcast.
Thank you very much for having me.
I'm excited to chat with you. So Theo, can you start us off by telling us a little bit about yourself, about Racecar Classifieds, and your role within it?
So my name's Theo, as I said, and I'm 24. Racecar Classifieds has been around for maybe 2 years in February, so it'll be our birthday then, around Valentine's Day, funnily enough. And we are an online marketplace focusing on high caliber competition and racing cars. Started from a lifelong passion that I've had with a very close friend of mine called Connor, and we sat together looking at race cars online, as we often did, and sort of figured out that it was a lot harder than it needed to be, and you had to dig through a lot of lemons, so to speak, to try and find good examples of cars. And we figured out that we might be able to do something a little bit better. And the last 2 years, I've said 2 years, the last 2 years with Racecar Classifieds has just been about evolving our site, showcasing these beautiful cars in a better way and making it easier for people to sell them and also for people to browse and buy them.
I love it. And I love that you're leaning into your passion, especially you being so young. So congratulations. I have 2 teenagers and I'm always telling them, like, find what you're really passionate about and then go do something with it. Because if you're enjoying your work and your business, then the money will find you at that point. But too many people chase the money and not the joy. And when we do it in reverse, we're always struggling to find money. And then when we're miserable, it's a little too late. So we feel like it's a little too late. Like, how are we going to, once the responsibilities pile on? So I'm so glad that you're leaning into your joy, and the money is going to be there, or it might already be there for you. If it's not, it's coming for sure. So breaking into a tight knit industry, which you are, like motorsports, race cars, it's a tight knit space and it's not easy. So what were some of the biggest challenges that you faced in gaining trust and credibility? And how did you overcome those challenges?
So you're spot on in saying that it was a hard industry to get into, and certainly in the historic racing world, which is what we try and hone in on and specialize in, I think it's even more tough. The modern racing world is dominated by big companies and lots of financial investment, which is difficult. But the historic world is, as you said, it's built on trust and built on relationships, and it's very generational. So what you'll find is that the same family will work on the same company for 3, 4, 5 generations, sometimes even more. And that made it very difficult for Connor and I, because we're both newcomers. Neither of our parents have a vested interest in motorsports. And the main challenge for us was breaking into those circles. And we found that once you were in, it was much easier, and you had a personal recommendation from someone that someone else trusted. It was much easier. But the main thing that we did to get in was just presence. And we went to races, we went to events, we visited dealers. And once we'd sort of broken the first wall of conversation and the first bit of trust, and we were in and we'd spoken to people, it became infinitely easier. And then word of mouth is a wonderful thing when you're a good person and when you try and act honestly. So that's helped us massively. And just being about and having your face recognized has done loads for us.
Yeah. So what do you believe? Because people are passionate about their cars, right? Especially then just think about cars in general. Now take it to another level of race cars. So what do you believe most people misunderstand when it comes to niche marketplaces, and especially one built around something like yours, which is passion driven? So when it comes to passion driven industries.
I think the main thing that we realized is you can just never be too careful. And you're absolutely right that people, even if people don't race their cars and have a collection and just want to keep them and look at them and then maybe sell them if they need to, people are so protective about them and protective about who might be buying them that you can't put too many safety nets in place. And if we can check a buyer, or we can veto a buyer or interview a buyer even, and then the dealer then interviews them, and then they then speak to the seller. There's a 3-step process, but people like that security, and they like that everybody's vetted and everybody's safe and their car's going into the right hands. And it was difficult at first, but the fact that we can add that security is a big selling point for us and a big buying point, or a big point for the buyers as well.
So you had mentioned relationships and building those connections in your space, especially because you're newcomers, y'all are young, and there's a lot of huge competition with larger companies in your space. So how has community, and when you start a business or at any point in your business, we have to have strategy. So when you're starting up or you're in growth, it's important that we're constantly looking at our strategy, looking at what's working, what's not working, and tweaking it. So for you coming in, obviously you needed to formulate a strategy. So how has community and industry trust shaped your growth strategy for Racecar Classifieds?
It's had a massive impact on it. And actually, it's interesting you say that, because when we first went in, we didn't have a strategy. It was my first venture into anything vaguely entrepreneurial, and first time I'd ever worked for myself. Luckily for my co-founder, it wasn't the case. But we went in and we sort of thought we'd meet a few people, talk to people, figure out what people wanted, and then build from there. And actually what we realized is that the idea that we had initially when we were sat on that sofa looking at cars was completely different to what people actually wanted in the race world. And once we'd figured what people did want, it became infinitely easier to build. And whilst that may seem very obvious to many other people, and certainly is obvious to me now, it was a bit of a shock at the time that what my friend and I wanted to build was not what people wanted. And they didn't want just another cookie cutter marketplace. They wanted something a bit more specialized, cleaner, easier to use. And that shaped it massively. And sort of circling back to your question, the relationships that we then built off the back of having those conversations continuously helped to shape what the product is today and what the site looks like today. And we're always talking to dealers and suppliers and customers, figuring out what kind of information they want to see on the site, what they want to be highlighted, and which elements of adverts are important to them, and making those a lot easier to access. So it's a continual sort of iteration process, and that community and the trust is massively helpful, because people are able to tell us what they want to see and how they want to see it and how easy they want to be able to find it, and that enables us to make sure that our platform is currently the best there is.
Yeah, you and Connor are very, very smart at such a young age to be doing your market research and building those relationships early. Many companies or founders will have an idea and they'll go launch it and then go to sell it and hear crickets. So it's really important that you're really, no matter what stage you're in, you're always talking. So now that you have those relationships formed, you and Connor are going to be able to now keep those conversations flowing and keep tweaking and getting better and better based on the needs of your customers, right? Because our customers' needs can change. And if we're not communicating with them, we won't know they're changing until we see that change in either our product sales, our revenue dropping, or something else going on. And by then you're scrambling to fix it. So I love how you all are, starting from market research, basically getting known, getting your face out there, having those conversations, building those relationships, listening. That's the key too. Listening, not going, oh, this is a problem we solve and I know how to solve it, without talking to the people on knowing how they want it solved. Because just because you can solve the problem doesn't mean that you're solving it in the way that your customers want it solved, which is really important. So let's talk about that. What is the problem that you sought out to solve when you first were realizing, like, okay, this is what we're looking for and it's not as easy, but I'd like you to go deeper on what that problem is that you're solving.
Of course. So Connor and I, we don't race ourselves yet, but we are always looking at routes into historic racing and how we can effectively get into it for hopefully not too much money. But we sort of spent hours looking at cars and trying to find the right cars to maybe even go and view, and found that we were digging through the current sort of industry standard, or the common competitor or biggest competitor. You sift through car parts, you sift through exhausts, you sift through old racing suits just to try and find the right car. It's very similar to something like eBay. It's very horizontal, and that there's just everything is on the same platform, and it's very difficult to navigate. So we knew what we wanted to solve, we knew what we wanted to do. And also you'd have some chap from the north of England who'd have a car in his shed that he's had in there for a few years or decades, versus someone in London who's got a showroom, bright lights, the cars are all checked over and they're ready to go and on the button. And there was no differentiation between those other than the image quality. And you sort of never really knew what you were looking at. You never knew what to expect. We had a few dealers or a few people that we started speaking to who had voiced really similar concerns, and that they'd traveled a very long way to go and get a car, to turn up and it be in a really poor state and not as described and not as pictured at all. And that was the sole problem that we were trying to fix. We wanted people to go onto the site, find it really easy to navigate through categories of cars, makes of cars, and even eras, and just know that they were looking at a reputable car from a reputable person that they can call up, go and see, and it's not going to have any bad surprises in there for them.
So Theo, from a startup perspective, what are some of the most important early decisions that you and Connor made that's helping with you gaining traction, especially if you have a less of a marketing budget than, say, these larger companies out there?
So I think the main thing for us that helped, and it comes back to that community aspect and the reputation building that we spoke about earlier, was getting out, talking, and once we'd built those relationships, maintaining them. And from that, we were able to work actually mainly by word of mouth and turning up to events with a branded gilet, for example. And from that, we were able to expand much more than we would without any of that community. And because the industry is so heavily reliant on word of mouth, it worked massively in our favor. And Connor and I also had a big emphasis on helping people out. And if we could go and help out, take photos of cars for people, which is a hobby for both of us anyway, help out at events, that kind of thing, we found that people were really keen to pay back favors, repost our stuff on social media. And that kind of thing has had a massive, massive impact on us because the whole industry is so community driven and trust driven. That was brilliant. The other thing that we really found, actually, I really wanted to mention this on here, is across different social media channels that we use, for example, LinkedIn or Instagram or Facebook, we found a really different type of user on each one. So what we often see is that the people who interact with our posts on LinkedIn or my posts on LinkedIn are a completely different crowd to the people that interact with them on Instagram, and again, completely different to those that interact on Facebook. So for us, having content being produced for all three of those channels and different forms of content was really, really big. And I didn't expect that at all at the start. So that was a really big decision of us to do, and it's paid back in dividends.
That's amazing. So your platform, well, motorsports in general is very global, but also highly localized. So how are you scaling a platform in regards to, like you said, just share that you take pictures, you would offer to take pictures. Are you international at this point, or are you more locally focused to your area of where you are right now?
So in terms of our reach with dealers, so the suppliers, we're just about to take our first on in America, which I'm very, very excited to announce in the next couple of weeks. Some really, really beautiful cars, an ex-IMSA winning Corvette, which is very, very cool. But mostly we're over in the UK, and that's just because it was easier for us to build those relationships in person. But what we found is that the more we build in the UK, because of the way that the industry works, it's been really easy for us to spread a little bit more worldwide, because most of the dealers over here in the UK know most of the dealers over in America, and they all know the dealers in Europe. And it's also interconnected that it spreads very, very easily. It's very much like a spider's web, very much like a spider's web. But with the beauty of social media and online presence, our audience is actually very split between America and Europe. So we're sort of 50-50 in terms of audience, but currently 100% over in the UK in terms of cars. But then soon to expand, which is really, really excited about.
Yeah, that is very exciting.
Big celebrations in our office.
Yeah. So congratulations on your expansion.
Thank you.
Question for you. And you just mentioned your office. So, and you've talked about your partner, Connor, being a startup, what does team look like for you as far as back-end support? Because I know you're doing a lot of, word of mouth, a lot of relationships and networking building, the social media platform growth. But as far as back-end support, what does that look like for you, being that you've been in business for about 2 years?
So currently it's just the two of us. We put the site together ourselves, which was brilliant. We did have some help with that, obviously, and it's just the two of us that run it. Connor's a lot more technical than I am, or at least was when we started, and he knows everything that happens on the site like the back of his hand. and I tend to handle all of the social side of things because my background is in sales. So we split and we complement each other really well. And that's really, really helped us. There's a really clear division of duties in the company. And we're not afraid of outsourcing stuff. If we ever feel like things need to be done better than what we're capable of doing, then it's sort of straight on the phone to people we know or calling in favors from others. We're very, very easygoing when it comes to asking other people about things.
Amazing. You're also working on Cadence, which is coming to market soon. It's still under wraps. So without getting into product details, what lessons from Racecar Classifieds have most influenced how you're approaching this next venture?
Great question. So the main thing that's had an impact on my approach to Cadence, I'm a lot more formal with everything. I think Cadence is going to be it's a software product in the productivity space. And with Racecar Classifieds, because it was so personal and so, boots on the ground, we were at races and we were talking to people, but because Racecar Classifieds was that way, Cadence has been the complete opposite. I knew that it would require a completely different approach. So I've gone about everything very differently and much more organized. I've got roadmaps coming out of my ears. I've got timelines. And it's been a big learning curve, but I knew I needed to do it. And it's been a big learning curve, a great learning curve. And I'm very grateful to have the opportunity to develop my skills in a more enterprise level venture. But it's required a completely different approach. And I only knew that from how we've operated Racecar Classifieds and from how that's been.
So let's talk about the roller coaster a little bit. You kind of lean into it and I'm sure you've had it, and I'm sure both of you have gone through it. Many founders underestimate the emotional side of entrepreneurship. So Theo, what has surprised you most about the founder journey so far?
I think the main thing that shocked me was how up and down it is. I'm not going to say that I'm constantly on edge, but I often feel like I'm on a tightrope, and there are so many things that are coming at you that you've got to dodge and just stay on a level playing field, or try and stay on a level playing field. There are so many things that influence you, especially because Racecar Classifieds and Cadence are across two different industries. It's been very difficult for me to keep my eye on the ball in both areas and keeping my eggs. My eggs are fully in the Cadence basket at the moment, but it's been really interesting, and everyone talks about the ups and downs of being a founder, but I certainly found it very difficult to understand. I thought it'd be sunshine and rainbows, but it's often not. And figuring that out firsthand has been trying a lot of times. And I feel really grateful because I've got a really great network of founders around me, lots of friends who are building really cool things, and actually lots of people that I look up to that I'm lucky enough to call friends now. And making those connections has been invaluable for me, just in terms of feeling seen. I often found it difficult to talk about my problems, for example, with my family. My sister's a dentist, my mum works in education, and whilst they're both incredibly intelligent and very, very hardworking, it's such a different career choice or career path that I often didn't feel like I could talk properly about my experiences because it was just so different. And finding that network of other founders and other people who understood the journey and understood the highs and lows was a great turning point for me in terms of both confidence and just knowing that it was the right thing to feel. I thought, because I thought other people just had it not easy, but it was plain sailing. It was great for me to talk to people in the same position and realize that actually I wasn't weird for being so up and down with everything.
Yeah, you talked a lot today about network, community, connections, relationships, and that revolves all around every aspect of the business. And now you brought in a new piece of it, which I love. And we talk about this a lot on my other podcast, because that one is focused more toward women and female entrepreneurs and going through the ups and downs of everything, because we're juggling a lot of things. We don't talk about it a lot on this podcast, but it's really key, because no matter if you're a founder, if you're an entrepreneur, this is a piece that you need to surround yourself with people who are not necessarily in the same industry, but experiencing the same thing, other entrepreneurs, other founders. Having those relationships is key. Your mom being an educator and your sister being a dentist, that is completely different path than what you're on. And the beauty of it is that I love that you're stepping outside the box, and I love that you're doing it young, and I love that you're leaning into your passion. It's guided by your passion, and that takes a lot of courage and moving through a lot of fear. And not everybody that is not an entrepreneur, most people who aren't entrepreneurs don't understand why we would even choose this path, because it can be, it's scrappier, right? It's not consistent there with, especially with income at the beginning. It's not consistent. There are ups and downs. It's not sunshine and rainbows a lot of the time. And we need to learn how to navigate our mindset. So that's a key piece in it. And we don't always have people that we can talk to that understand it, because especially if they're doing a 9 to 5 or an 8 to 4 or 8 to 5, whatever it looks like, and they're off on weekends. Entrepreneurs don't really get that luxury at the beginning. When it's a startup, you're in it 24/7. You're taking those calls and those conversations when you get them, when you can get them. So I love that you knew to surround yourself with others. So you are not crazy. You know, you're not alone. You know that this is how we all feel, and you get the support when you need it, and you also get to support and give back when they need it, which is fantastic, because it feels really good to give. And so and I love that. And I laughed when you said sunshine and rainbows, only because my producer's going to laugh. She's my co-founder, and I have a co-founder as well, and we're complete opposites, which I agree with you, completely works. You need somebody who's opposite with you. Then if you're going to have a co-founder come in, if you're going to have a partner, find somebody that's different than you, that has different gifts and different strengths, but also a different personality, because that you both, you can handle everything, especially when you're starting up. But she's going to laugh because I used to say, it's all cupcakes and rainbows and flowers, and I don't change it up every day. There's thunder and lightning that come in as well. We have to navigate that. So, Theo, what are the big goals for you all in the next, say, 12 months next year?
For both companies, or for me personally?
We can go both companies, and then if you'd like to share personally, we'd love to hear that as well, because we don't hear that much here on here.
So for both companies, for Racecar Classifieds, we're actually pushing more towards off market, which is very ironic given that we are part of the market, but we have a really great time figuring out those connections. And for example, if someone in Australia has a car that we know someone in Canada wants, figuring out how to make that connection work, checking that it's the right car, and making that happen for us, that's really exciting. And being that middleman, making someone's dream of, maybe it's not their dream, but someone's dream of selling their car, and someone's got a dream of buying that car, and making that happen for both of them. And then on one side, seeing the seller really happy that he's freed up some capital and he's got another space for something else that he might want instead. And then seeing the buyer have a great time in his new car and taking it out on everywhere he can. That's something that we're really focused on at the moment. And that, again, it's so reliant on relationships, and it's something that I've personally been putting a lot of effort into, building those relationships in the industry and getting below a surface level and figuring out how to use everyone's network properly. Everybody knows someone that's got a car that you're looking for, and figuring out how to go about that the right way has been really exciting for us and really great. It's been a really great process. We've got a few changes to the site coming as well. And obviously, as I said, looking to expand, or are expanding more into your neck of the woods, which is really exciting for us. And hopefully that'll lead to some nice trips. For the Cadence, the priority is just to go to market. We've got a pretty exciting Q1 roadmap, which I won't go into, but I'm really looking forward to it. And I'm actually really looking forward to the challenges that it's going to have for me as well, and the growth that it's going to demand from me. So super excited about that. Personally, both of those, keep seeing my family as much as possible, keep my friends as close as possible, and lots of running as well, which is my favorite hobby, other than being around cars.
Yeah, I love that you're bringing all of it around. Like, it's important that you step away from the work a little bit at some point, and take time for you with your health, your both physically, mentally, spiritually, and also keeping those relationships going, and bring some fun with your family and friends into it. Otherwise, burnout can hit, because I've experienced it. I know what it's like.
And it's super easy to get yourself into, especially in the startup world. And I think that there's a lot of stuff on social media that perpetuates the grind culture, as it's called. And it's so easy just to think you should be working all the time, and especially with the speed that things happen nowadays with all the advancements in AI. But it's so important to look after yourself and to take time off when you need time off, or even before you need time off, just to stop that burnout happening.
Yeah, and get to understand yourself. And you, in Connor, being a startup and now launching another startup, scheduled, making sure that you want, like, this is for all of you listening, especially if you're in the new startup phase, understanding who you are, because everybody's different. Just because somebody online says that this works for them doesn't mean it's going to work for you. It's not a one size fit all, especially when it comes to your self-care and making sure you're prioritizing relationships, your personal relationships, and your personal well-being, is knowing when you could hit that point and making sure you're scheduling that in prior to you hitting that point. Because once you hit that breakdown point or that burnout or that overwhelm, it's harder to pull yourself out of it. So if you understand when that's going to happen, and make sure you're putting in those buffers of scheduling it in, because many of us work by our calendar, and if we don't have it scheduled, it's not happening, right? So making sure that you do that, but understanding what somebody else is telling you works for them doesn't mean it's going to be the same for you. And if you need it more often, take it more often. Do what works for you. Theo, I had a question. You brought up AI, and I already had some questions for AI in my mind that I wanted to ask you. There's two separate questions I have for AI. One, are you implementing AI, because there's two of you, and if so, in your systems that you have for your companies? Are you? And if you are, how are you doing it to support your business?
So for Racecar Classifieds, it's not something that I suspect we will ever touch. Like, the industry is much slower to adopt new things. And if you look at sort of the AI boom, it's only happened recently, even though it's been around for a while. I'd be shocked if the race car industry adopts AI in the next decade. I think it's so slow, and also I can't personally see how it will add to certainly the historic world, and what value it could bring. In cadence, it is something that we're using, and that's been another learning curve, but it's been super exciting to figure out how everything works, and endless hours of sat at this laptop and re-engineering prompts and putting them back in and trying to figure out what's going to get me the best response. It's been really exciting, but I think there are some really capabilities of AI obviously change and evolve all the time. And I think that will lead to big changes in the startup scene, and potentially more acquisitions as more companies want to have more things included in their offering. Even Zoom, sort of waiting to join the meeting, and you can see that Zoom's got all kinds of note takers and message summaries and that everything. That I think all companies want to have everything now. And it'll be very interesting to see the role that AI plays in that, and the role that startups play in that, and how smaller companies are acquired by bigger companies and their capabilities are sort of merged into the big offering. I think I'm certainly very invested in.
So my second question for AI in regards to AI is for your Racecar Classifieds business platform. I know that you won't use AI there, and then the race car industry, they probably won't touch it for a long time. How are you? And I'm sure this was an issue before AI, but now with AI, I would guess that it could possibly be, what's the word I'm looking for? Like, not exasperating, but putting an exclamation point is the only thing I can on it. Before, you could do Photoshop for images. Now AI can really make incredible videos and things like that. So how are you making sure that for the trust factor stays there, and AI isn't being used for those photos and images of the cars that are being shown? And maybe, I don't know if I'm asking you that correctly. If you need more clarification, please let me know.
No, I know what you mean. It's a brilliant question. Actually, it's not something that I'd considered before, but it's one of those things with the racing industry, that because everything is so saying it again, everything is so trust based. If one person did something like that, there would really be no future for them in the industry. But the damage that would have to someone's reputation would stop anyone from even thinking of doing something like that. And it would be a very, I believe, a very poor move for anyone to consider doing that kind of thing when marketing a car. And it's not something that we well, touch wood, it's not something that we've encountered, and hopefully it's not something that we encounter for a very long time. But there are swathes of people using AI in, in their advertising, and not so much image and video generation, but even in short form content, as people start to get wise in the industry to how short everyone's attention span is nowadays. People are using AI for jokey videos and humorous videos, but it's not found its way into the actual advertising of the cars yet.
Yeah. And one thing I guess about being so tightly niched is that you, like you said, everybody, it's very trust based, but everybody knows everybody, right? It could be
Yeah.
one person off, but everybody's connected in some way. So word's going to go fast. And that's why your word of mouth has probably been so tremendous with your growth, because it is such a tight knit community that one person loves what you're doing or hears about you, they're spreading it pretty quickly. I would say the same would happen, if not faster, on the negative side of it. So if somebody was to do that, like you said, it would definitely flip the lid for them in a very abruptly and not in a good way. So Theo,
Yeah.
for founders who are listening and considering niche markets, what made you confident that focused narrowly, specifically with the race car one, your Racecar Classifieds, was a strength rather than a limitation?
I think for us, it was just talking to people. And until we actually pivoted into, so when we first started, we wanted to be all encompassing, and we wanted everybody to be able to list their car on a nice platform and show everything on there. And the pivot that I mentioned was into what we are now, which is very specialist, dealers on one end only, not someone with a car in their shed, as I joked about. And it was only from that pivot that we knew that was the right thing to do. But the one thing I'd say is that you have to go out and you have to talk to people, and you have to realize what they want. Everybody wants, or most people will want, something different if there's a slow industry or it's slightly older. And as businesses trickle down, and as sons or daughters come on and help out with social media, every industry is changing, and people are getting younger, and people who are my age and very tech savvy are taking over everything, really, especially on social media. And there will always be a market to modernize things that haven't been modernized yet, because things have to change. But you've just got to get out, and you've got to talk to people, and you've got to figure out which elements they like and which elements they don't like, and what they want to see from a new platform or a new marketplace or a new product. But it's there. Actually, I was speaking to someone that I know from the racing world, has got a very similar company in wood restoration called Restorate, and I had a 40-minute long conversation with him, talking about the parallels between what we're trying to do with, or what we are doing with Racecar Classifieds, and what he's doing with wood finishes. And it was really interesting. There are so many things that are the same. But the point is, without going on too much, there is room for modernization in any old industry. It's just, you've just got to figure out what people want and why they want it, so you can build it properly and find that solution that people want.
Yeah, and I'm really I'm so glad that we had you on and you're in talking to you today, because there's a lot of people, especially in the beginning, they think I want to go broad. I can help so many people, like you were saying. Originally, you wanted to just help everybody that wanted to sell cars, just make it really simple and make it a clean platform, and easy to navigate. But realize quickly that that's not what the market wants. And many times we want to go broad because we feel like we can help so many people in this space. And we think the categories, like cars, that's a niche. But when you really drill down and sub niche that, which is what you've not only niched, but you've sub leveled niche in a very deep
way into the rabbit hole.
Yeah. And which is fantastic. Can be scary, because you're like, what, I don't know, I'm limiting my pool here of market, but you're actually growing that pool, because you're actually bigger, because now you're going to be very well known as an expert in your space in that specific sub niche. So for those of you listening who are scared about niching, there's always this saying, nicher is richer, broad is broke. So really, not only niching, which Theo and Connor have done, but actually sub niching if you can. So cars is a niche, right? Because you could go cars, trucks, tractors, trailers, anything that has, 4, 6 wheels, right? But you didn't do that. You actually went, like you said, you went way deep in the rabbit hole and you focused on race cars, which is fantastic. And a very high end car, might I say. So it's a
Some
very,
beautiful stuff. Yeah.
very fun space. So hopefully we see you in those, like, maybe you're going to be in the pit of those, sponsoring
Yes.
eventually
Yeah.
one day. So let's, before I let you go, because I know I not need to wrap, to respect your time. I love this conversation. So thank you. Let's see, if I could give you a magic wand, 2 last questions. If I could give you a magic wand and you can wave it over one challenge or issue you're having right now and you can go poof and it disappears, what would that be and why?
That's a great question. I think to focus more on Racecar Classifieds, I think the main thing that I'd love to make go away is the slow adoption mindset that people have. And I know you've spoken about modernizing industries and getting into industries and how difficult it is. But actually, sometimes even when you build a personal relationship with someone and they trust you and they like what you're doing, a lot of people still won't. They'll never be the first person to do something. And that is still something that we're struggling to overcome. And even hopefully, as I said, moving across the pond, so to speak, we're really lucky to have the first dealer over there that we're going to be working with. But it was so difficult to find the first one, and we found the same with Europe. Even people that we've spoken to consistently, we see at races, they don't want to be the first person to join the platform, and it's really, really odd, really odd. So that's what I'd wave away if I was presented with a magic wand.
I love it. And if that first one is hard, we just launched a new product, and literally the first one is the one that once you get the first one, then it becomes easier and easier and easier. But it's literally getting that first person. We have clients in other areas of what we do, but this new product we're so excited about it. And like, just like you were like, and I'm sure Cadence will be the same for you, that first one, that first user.
Yes.
But once you get it, celebrate it, because, and for any of you thinking of starting something, or you're in that space where you've started your business and you're just going for that first one, keep going. And because once you get that first one, it just, then all the dominoes start falling into place. My last question for you, go ahead.
Oh, sorry, I was going to say, weirdly enough as well, it's like a bell curve where the first one's really difficult, and then it sort of gets easier up to a point, and then it just sort of flips on its head, and then people don't want to not be on the platform because everybody that they know and talk about cars with is on the platform. So it's the first one's hard, and then it gets easier and easier and easier, and then all of a sudden it sort of does the work for you because everybody wants to be on. So if the dealers go to a nice dinner and there are 6 of them at the table and 5 of them are on the platform and one isn't, then you can almost sell the platform without being there and without having to talk about it. And there's the opposite of not wanting to be an early adopter, is that people don't want to be the last person on the bandwagon. That's the point that we've got to in England, which is nice.
Yeah.
But it's taken a very long time to get there.
Yeah. I love it.
Yes. I keep my fingers crossed.
It's coming. It's coming. Okay. My last question for you is, if we could bring you back in 12 months and revisit this conversation, what does success look like for you? And you could talk about both both companies, and you can also talk about personally if you'd like.
Okay. So for Racecar Classifieds, that would definitely look like a much larger network across the USA, into Canada as well, hopefully, and dealers in Europe. That's really, really straightforward. We've already done our roadmap for the whole of the year. And that's exactly what success would look like. It would be an international range of dealers. For Cadence, going to market is the main focus. And that would be successful in my eyes. But also just giving it a really good go. I'm really passionate about the product, and obviously it's limited what I want to share. Hugely passionate about the product, and I'm hugely optimistic. But I want to do myself. I don't want to do myself a disservice, and I want to give it everything that I can give it. Obviously, avoiding the burnout that we spoke about earlier. And if I can sit down here in 12 months' time and know that I tried everything I could and that I wanted it to work and willed it to work, then I could be really happy with myself.
Beautiful. So can you share with us how to connect with you, Theo, and also Racecar Classifieds, learn more about that, where to go? And if you have the information for Cadence, because by the time this episode comes out, you could be you could be at market.
Yes.
Is there something you can share so people can check it out when this airs, you're live?
Of course. Well, so for Racecar Classifieds, it's very simple. You can search us, you can follow us on LinkedIn, you can follow us on Instagram or Facebook, whichever your preferred method of scrolling is. You can also visit our website, www.racecar-classifieds.com. You can find me personally on LinkedIn, is where I'm most active. I'm a bit of a Luddite on every other form of social media, I'm afraid. But LinkedIn at Theo Crewe-Reed. And I do post about Cadence on there as well. You can find Cadence on LinkedIn and also www.get-cadence.
Amazing. So we'll have all of Theo's links inside of the show notes, and as well as his bio and info. So if you want more information, you can go to there as well. But go connect with him on LinkedIn. Go check out Racecar Classifieds, racecar-classifieds.com, and then go to check out Cadence as well and see if it's live. I don't know. I can't give you a date as of today of when this is going to air, but it could be live by that time. So for those of you listening, if you're watching us on YouTube, thank you. We appreciate you. And if you want to hit that subscribe button, we invite you to do so and would love it. That allows us to ping you when we have more amazing guests like Theo on this podcast. If you're listening to us on your favorite podcast platform, thank you. Appreciate you as well. And if you are so kind to hit those 5 stars, that allows the platform to push this podcast out to more people so they can hear our amazing guests like Theo today. If you know of anybody, no matter what platform you're watching or listening to us on, and you know somebody who is a race car enthusiast or who is a founder in a startup and could benefit from hearing Theo today, please share the YouTube video or share the podcast interview with those people. That we rely on your help too to support our guests who are here sharing their insights and wisdom and taking time. So thank you so much for that. Theo, before I let you go, is there anything you'd like to share that I didn't, or final words that I didn't get to ask you or we didn't talk about today?
No, there isn't actually. Some really, really brilliant questions and nothing that I would have nothing bad on.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for your time and being here. I really appreciate you. Excited to possibly bring you back in a year and see what's been happening with Cadence and Racecar Classifieds, and keep doing what you're doing and paving the way for other young people who might hear you. I'm definitely going to be sharing this interview with my kiddos who's 15 and 16. So I love it. So thank you so much.
Brilliant. Well, thank you very much for having me on. It's been a real pleasure.
Absolutely. Anytime. So thank you for listening to Theo and I today. And I look forward to seeing you on the next episode of the Business Growth Spotlight.